Hey, what's up YouTube? Dan the Fix-It Man. Got another quick video here for you. I'm going to show you how to change your front brake pads and your front brake rotors on a 2005 Toyota Corolla. Now the first thing that I like to do is push this caliper piston back inside the caliper, which is going to give us more room for the new thicker pads and of course the thicker rotors. Now when we push the caliper piston back in, that's going to push the hydraulic fluid back up this line and into our master cylinder. So it's important that we pop the hood and verify that there's enough room in there so that when that fluid comes back up into it, it's not going to overflow and make a big mess. As an alternative method, you could also crack open this little bleeder screw, put a little hose on there, and you could push the caliper piston back in, and that's going to expel the old fluid out the bleeder. And that's not a bad way to do this too. It's also a good way to cycle through your brake fluid. Completely up to you how you want to do it. Now, because I'm not going to open the bleeder, I'm not going to have to bleed the brakes when I'm done because I'm not introducing any air or the possibility of any air getting into our hydraulic system. But let's go ahead and take a look up top and see if there's enough room so that we can push this caliper piston back in and get this done. Okay, so here's our master cylinder, and you can see that it's got quite a bit of fluid in here, but it's way down from the max, and I think when we push that caliper piston back in, we're not going to overflow this and make a mess. A lot of people ask me if you need to take the cap off before pushing that caliper piston back in. Now, you really don't need to take this off, and I usually don't take it off. I usually leave it on unless I need to remove some brake fluid or add new brake fluid. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, meaning that it absorbs or attracts moisture. Even the moisture in the air is not good. It can cause your brake fluid to degrade and go bad. That's why brake fluid containers are always sealed. So really, the less you can expose the brake fluid to air or moisture, the better. So I'm going to leave that on, and looks like we've got enough room to push that caliper piston back in. Now there's quite a few ways you can push the caliper piston back in. You can take this off and then use the caliper compression tool or wind back tool, but what I usually do, because there's a nice large window here, is just grab a little pry bar like this one. This is the Mayhew Dominator that I really like, and it fits right in here, and what we're doing is just catching the edge of the rotor or pad and pull that towards you. Now what I'm going to do is shift this over in between the inside pad and the rotor. You can see right in here, maybe not with the camera, but that's going to allow us to pry this the rest of the way back in. So I'm going to continue to pull that towards me. Now that's turning the wheel as well till the steering wheel locks. And that should do it right there. Now you can see we've got lots of room in there for the new thicker pad material. I should mention I also do have the wheel turned outwards so that you can get to this caliper a little bit easier. Now the next thing we need to do is loosen and remove these two caliper slide pin bolts, and those are a 14mm. I'm just going to use the Milwaukee mid-torque here. That's what those look like. We'll set those aside. Now we can pull off the caliper, and I've got these little caliper hooks, so I'm just going to hook that on here and hang it way up high on the coil spring so it's out of our way. All right, now we can pump out the old brake pads. All right, now we can loosen and remove the two caliper bracket bolts, and those are a 17mm socket. I'm going to use the same Milwaukee mid-torque here to hopefully get these off. There we go. Now we've got to use a universal, see if that will still have enough power to pop this off. And I've got one hand holding the bracket because once you take these bolts out, that will just fall to the ground. Okay, we can't quite get it with this. Now, unfortunately, when we use the impact wobble, that takes away some of our power, and that was not enough to break that loose. So we can either use a breaker bar or the larger impact. I'm going to see if that will fit in there. All right, well, here's the bigger Milwaukee. See if this one will fit in here. Got a little Koken socket there with a universal. Yeah, fits on there. Let's see if that'll break it loose. And our bracket comes right off. Now take a look, the rotor is also just coming right off. That's pretty nice. Now a lot of times these will get stuck and you have to go at it with the Tanya Harding, or you can also use the 2-bolt method if the rotor has holes. This one does not, so we're lucky this one just popped right off. Now before I put the new rotor on, I'm going to clean the hub with this wire wheel and a drill. Just make sure you wear some eye protection if you're going to use something like this. Now I'm also going to brush the hub with a little bit of this copper anti-seize. That really seems to prevent these from getting stuck. The copper seems to be a little higher heat than the aluminum, but the aluminum anti-seize would work just fine on here too. Kind of just focusing on this shoulder area here. Trying not to get that on the lug nuts. And then we're going to spray some brake cleaner here on this paper towel. I'm going to wipe the new rotor surfaces because these get packed in some oil. We just want to make sure you clean that off before you put this on. And then we'll line that up. Let's hit the outside here too. All right, we're also gonna change out our hardware here on the bracket. So just pop those clips off. And this one's not too bad, but I'm gonna clean that up a little bit. Now I am going to brush a little bit of caliper grease underneath those clips. Now the reason is because a lot of rust and buildup happens underneath here. This is more of a protectant than a lubricant, but this stuff will really prevent the rust and corrosion from happening under those clips. The thing is, if it does corrode underneath here and the rust starts to build up, that will cause your brakes to bind. So it is important to put some protection underneath these clips. Let's go ahead and put the new ones in. Now some kits don't come with replacement clips, and a lot of times I've had to just clean these up and reuse them, but it's ideal if you can put new clips on each time. They just snap into place. I'll also wipe a little bit of that protective grease on the clip as well. That seems to help the pad slide in there too without getting bound up. All right, now we also need to pull out these slide pins and we'll clean and re-grease them. This one actually doesn't look too bad. Use that same caliper grease here. This is the Versachem. It's a real pretty blue color. Pop that back in. When you push it in, you see how it wants to push out? You kind of need to push it in and squeeze on the boot, and that will burp that little air. You hear that little pop? Now it looks good. Feels nice and smooth, and it's not pushing out. Let's do the same with this one here. Really not too bad. These really weren't dry or sticky. Now I'm pretty sure I did the brakes on this vehicle the last time they were done. These slide pins felt really nice and smooth. There they are again, just kind of squeeze that. Pop out that air. That looks good. And this is ready to go back on. Now before I put that caliper bracket back on, I am going to use a little bit of this blue thread locker. This is Permatex medium strength. And this will help hold these caliper bracket bolts in place. Oh, that's way too much. Perfect. And I'll just kind of smear that around like so. That looks good. Now here I probably could have grabbed a lug nut to put this on and hold it in place, and I'll do that especially with a heavier duty rotor. These are pretty lightweight, so it's not going to be too difficult, I think, to fight this. Just kind of got to line that up and we'll get these caliper bolts started. And I'm just going to snug these real quick with the Milwaukee here. And then I'm going to get these torqued to 79 foot-pounds. All right, and then we can just put the new brake pads in. Kind of helps to come in here at a little bit of an angle. And then just, let's try that again. I think our pads are a little too big. I hate when this happens, but it does happen every once in a while. So here's what's going on, guys. So these brake pads, for whatever reason, this is the Brake Best Select brand. This is the O'Reilly House brand. Now here's the old brake pad that we took off. Take a look. Pops right in. No problem at all. Now I went back to O'Reilly and I said, hey, these are not working. And I just took the old pad and went back to back with the new pad. And you can see that the new pad is longer, 4.81 inches on the old one, and the new one is 4.84 inches. Now here's the other part, it's 4.07. Let's see if that's the same on here. Yes, it is, 4.07. And the inside part here, 3.8 on the old pad, 3.8. So all of the other specs and measurements are correct. It's just the ends are shorter. The only other brand that they had was their Import Direct in stock. They're also the same size, so they would also not fit. If I had more time, I would go ahead and just either order the OEM pads or buy another brand online, or even shop around, find another auto parts store. Just wanted to make you all aware, though, if you're going to buy these at O'Reilly, the SC923 on a Toyota Corolla 2005, they might not work. So we're just gonna have to work with what we got right now. So let's go ahead and just try to grind these down a little bit. Just be careful when you do this. I'm gonna check and see if that fits in there. And it does, and that doesn't feel too tight. All right, I'm gonna go with that. Now what I'll do is just make sure that I grease up these ends so that that doesn't rust or corrode on us, but I think these are now good to go. Let's take another look here. Yep, that looks good. Now that's nice and snug, but it's not going to cause that to bind up. Now the kit also didn't come with these little wear indicators or these squealers. I just happen to have some. The pad has little cutouts for them, but I'm going to put it on the inside at the top. There it is. That looks perfect. All right, now that I know that they fit, I'm gonna pull this back off real quick because I wanna hit those ends with a little bit of that caliper grease. Now, I used to always put the grease on the ends of the pad, but somebody kind of made a comment and said, you know, these are just supposed to be able to slide around here on that, that clean steel. But I think in this case, because we had to grind these to make them fit, I'm gonna put a little bit at the ends here, and that will help protect that or prevent that from rusting. Let's just pop that in again. Now, and you can also put this stuff on the back of the pad here or the back of the shim, but I'm going to use the higher temp stuff on the back. It's the orange colored stuff. There we go. This stuff right here, this is what I'm going to use on the outside. This is the silicone ceramic extreme. Just seems to hold up a little bit better to the heat, and it also just kind of helps dampen the vibrations, which is what causes your brakes to be noisy or squeak. All right, and then we can grab our caliper. Let's take it off of that coil spring and take off our hook. Make sure that it's clean and that the boot is pushed back in. Sometimes these boots will be stuck out. You can pull on them a little bit to let out some of the air, but this one looks like it's pretty clean, and this is ready to put back on. Just like that. And we can put in the 2 caliper slide pin bolts. The slide pins have a little flat spot that will catch on the flat spot of the caliper as well, prevent that from spinning. Same with the bottom one. And we can go ahead and torque these to 25 foot-pounds. And you're done. Now, before you go driving off, it's important that you step on the brake pedal a few times, which will push the caliper piston back out, pressing those new pads up against the rotor where they need to be. Now, when you do that, don't press the pedal all the way to the floor. Just push it down halfway several times until it feels firm. And then don't forget to double check the master cylinder as well. Make sure that that fluid is all topped off where it needs to be. I hope you liked the video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you don't mind. That does help me out. And of course, I'll get a link in the description where you can pick up some of the same parts and tools used in the video as well. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck.